and he said he knows that person very well. There's no need for so many confirmation. He wanted to know how many priests of tinsel passed through those land. The king thinks it might be a coincidence. Right now, there are 14 priests. Other priests went to that region with a single proposal. They're gathering them all. It's not like Q's is forcing them to do anything, so he allowed them to search for them. Ellen said Tinsel's situation isn't good. They need a lot of priests. That's why the king allowed them to leave the territory. He still doesn't understand what the great mage is getting at. But he learned his son wants the location of all of them, which made the king really curious. It doesn't make sense for his son to be so interested in that, because he's already in a region that has a priest. Meanwhile, Hal was drinking from a specific wine bottle. Now, a similar bottle is in the mysterious woman's hand. Our boy noticed that small detail. Blue Nightingale came back to the last question. It seems she already answered it, saying it wasn't very modest. Outside, in a hurry, Kion realized his host had lied. The priest was being hidden there. Kion needs to return to the castle urgently. He told his master about it. When he put that man to sleep during their meeting, he's sure the man wasn't drunk. It was all an act where our boy is staying. Someone tries to speak with him, but his butler won't allow it. Kion went out for his night walk. The old man who is the butler there said, he needs to talk to our boy, because his master wants to apologize. Soyeon said, that's not the proper way to apologize, and it's not a butler's place to pry into the prince's life. That left the old man very embarrassed. Soyeon was trying to buy time, because our boy still hadn't come back, and he couldn't let those people find out anything at all. He got more forceful with the old man, telling him to stop bothering them. Then our protagonist opened the bedroom door, complaining he can't rest with all that noise. His butler was relieved to see him. Kion called his own butler incompetent, saying his only job was to scare off nosy people. That made the butler apologize because the old man refused to leave. With a rough motion, our boy slammed the bedroom door, but inside, he felt relieved. His clothes were still wet, and he realized he just imitated his brother's jerk behavior perfectly. With things settled, his butler admitted he'd come back earlier than expected, using the windows to do it. Kion asked if anything else happened while he was gone, but it was only that old man. The problem is the Snoops, and our boy climbing out the third-floor window. After getting scolded for that, he promised to be more careful. Kion noticed his butler was a bit irritated, and he heard a fair complaint. Our boy never listens to him. He said Kion went out for a walk, but the old man kept coming back again and again to talk to our boy, insistent and methodical, more interested in timing than in where our boy had gone. In contact with his master, he realized the lord of that region is already alert. He definitely wasn't drunk at that meeting. Now they're going to uncover something much bigger. His contract with Blue Nightingale could be exposed. Drinking from that wine bottle would have been the perfect excuse, but the lord was put to sleep with magic. That's why the butler was so anxious trying to figure out our boy's real intention. Now it's about why he wants to get his hands on a sacred artifact. They could help in negotiations with Haladam, signaling the queen's family wants them close, giving gifts to all possible heirs, helping that little child set all of this in motion. Discovering a traitor noble doesn't feel like a coincidence. Since it's raining hard, our boy is stuck in that building, and he decided to hunt the traitor. Hale is furious. He should have realized our boy would be trouble when his gift got returned. Because of that unexpected spell, his plans are in danger now. Blinded by anger, Hale wished our boy were dead. He's already spent a lot of money to gain political ally. He was promised fertile lands near the capital, but the scandal with Sis ruined everything. The old butler went to speak with him. He still hadn't managed to talk to the informant. Furious, the noble threw a cup at the old man's head, saying he can't do anything right. And thanks to the rain, the protagonist will be there one more day. The old butler asked if the negotiation should be postponed. Hale said there's no other option. They can't do anything while the prince is there. Still boiling with rage, he told his maid to bring his clothes. He's ready to teach our protagonist a lesson in humility, so he never forgets it. It was time for a meal, and it was still raining hard outside. Hale believes the protagonist's calm look is just a bluff. He plans to use his title as count to punish our boy for using magic on him. Soon the young prince will be begging to be forgiven. While speaking with our boy, someone apologized for the night before. Kylan said it's fine, and went back to eating. Hale asked if a spell had been used. Our boy confirmed it, saying the Lord's behavior was becoming unbearable. But it's fine, old grudges. He'll let it go since it must be the first time that Noble has hosted someone from the royal family. It's normal he'd be nervous. Hale didn't expect that comeback, realizing our boy is extremely sharp after that brief exchange. Hale is the one who looks like the fool. Kion said he was exhausted from investigating an ambush, and because of that, he got a very interesting piece of information, the name of a kind of bird. Hale almost choked when he heard it, making the old steward very worried. Hale said not to interrupt because he and the prince are talking. Kylan said he still needs more details, but it's in the Lord's interest to know everything is happening on his land. Visibly worried, Hale said he'll help with the investigation. He doesn't want the prince getting hurt on his territory. The knight's commander decided to come over too. While they talked, Hale got even more irritated. And our boy said something very lucky happened for that count. It looks like their men finally decided to tell the truth. They all went to that same bar. Hale was disgusted. He would never have gone to the outskirts like that, despite the noble's efforts. Our boy had already won that battle. The wanderer asked what happened to his wife. Kylan said, they didn't do anything to his family because he gave his word, but there's a reason he came to see that man. He'll be punished with execution since he tried to attack a prince, and there are witnesses. There's nothing to be done. Even if he were spared, he has serious wounds that would end his life soon anyway. But our protagonist can offer another path, a decent life with workable land, and a modest house to live with his wife. If he's willing to cooperate, then his punishment will only be the amputation of his infected arm. After thinking for a bit, the wanderer agreed. He confirmed Blue Nightingale is a spy, and she's there to meet a client. They have a long-standing relation. In Hale's presence, our boy said there's a double agent there. That kind of betrayal is extremely serious. Words that left the poor Count completely terrified. Kylan is just waiting for him to do something and hand over more evidence. The old steward started begging for mercy, saying he was only following orders. Ellen didn't expect anything like this, and our boy took a closer look at the old man, concluding he's a priest of tinsel. Only they could buy divine artifact. The Count found out that secret. The old man is sure his head will be cut off when they find out he sold sacred relics. That confused our boy because it's not like they were buying the artifact. More and more interested, he realized the old man is ready to tell everything. The buyer is the queen's brother. He's the one offering the artifacts to Halidom. So, it looks like the political maneuvering still isn't over. If this happened, it means that he has abandoned Planche and is siding with Randall. So, he shouldn't be backing the queen anymore. Now that they know that, the question is what the next move will be. This is the kind of news that's going to cause a huge uproar. So, Ellen suggested they speak to the king first. Before that could happen, the young prince asked for a letter to be written addressed to Count Hale. He told him to take care of the prisoner's arm. Since the wound is so severe, that arm is going to have to be amputated, and he told the prisoner to accept. The commander is ready to follow every order. As for Kiri, she needs to find that man's wife and take her somewhere safe. The elf girl is excited too, and she came with Hina to help with the cleanup. She still talks too much, but the prince already understands what she's like. Without Arson there, this is going to be really difficult. The butler asked if the prince was going to do anything about that messenger bird and found out he wasn't. It's time to return it to its original owner. He just watches while the girl seemed entertained by the little bird. Kion said he'll buy one of those for Hina when they return to the palace because that one needs to be returned soon. Since Hina shares a room with another maid, she said her friend might feel uncomfortable with the bird. Kion told her to open the cage at lunchtime and do it near the window because he's expecting a visitor that night. He reads a book with a lot of patience. His visitor arrived earlier than expected. Blue Nightingale said the letter was far too touching. It was a threat. Kion was going to expose everything at the shop in the capital. The woman wants to know why this is happening. The prince gathered evidence about the sale of relic. He wants even more, enough to keep one of her secrets. Even so, she took a long time to respond, but there was no other choice except to agree, admitting she hates tedious arrangement. She threw several dice toward him. Kion realized they were magic bullet. He had to use a magical barrier to protect himself, causing a huge explosion inside the room and alerting everyone to what had happened. Kion locked the bedroom door, stopping anyone from coming in. Turning back to the woman, he asked if she really came there to kill him. Since she didn't have any bullets left, she waited for her blade to finish the job. He knows he won't be able to withstand many aura attacks with the plain sword he's carrying. He needs to end the fight quickly. After trading a few blows, he managed to disarm her, then realized she still had magic bullets, and one of them was coming straight at his chest. With a lot of skill, he used his sword to block it, but the blade ended up badly damaged. Now, Kylan is completely defenseless in front of a determined woman. Two mysterious spheres just fell to the floor. The spy already has one injured arm, learning the hard way that the prince is a sword master. She can't attack him. Kylan is furious, thinking about what he should do. Then, he decided to call her by her real name, Isla. That left her stunned. Kylan grabbed her firmly by the throat, and he noticed something right away. It wasn't there. The poison that should have been hidden in her mouth. Something all spies have. Now it's time for her to cooperate and share the evidence. Isla asked if she'll be released if she does that. Kion is getting more and more confused about her, not knowing if she's loyal to her own cause. Maybe she's changed over time. Isla said that if the prince doesn't want to get caught, he should let her go quickly, or she'll tell all the knights what happened there, assuming he wants to keep his identity hidden. In the past, Blue Nightingale wasn't a traitor. She used to fight with swords, and she was nothing like this version of herself. That makes the prince even angrier. Kion said that if she was willing to go that far because of this, she shouldn't have died in front of him. A deep silence fell between them. The prince let the spy go, and said his secret isn't that impressive. All he asked from her was the evidence, promising she'd be released without interrogation, because he knows she'll have to answer to White Eagle for what happened. Hale is still furious about everything going on. He doesn't know what that letter means. He was told he'll need a representative, and someone told the queen what's happening. This is the letter written by the prince's master. Hale realized his scheme to sell sacred relics has just been exposed. The great mage really is sharp, and all of this was set in motion by the young prince. Because of everything happening, Hale started to feel like people were underestimating him. But he already has a backup plan, and he stored a lot of treasure in his mansion. That should be enough for a quiet escape. And there's a special item worth more than all the others. With all those relics, he'll make a huge fortune. That's when Arson thanked him for the information, because he'd been hidden the whole time. Hale nearly had a heart attack at being surprised like that, because the mage was completely invisible. That was the evidence they needed. Arson presented the relics that had been hidden along with the information being leaked from that kingdom. That made the prince very happy. Most of that problem was already solved. The one who's still really anxious is the princess butler. He said something is happening outside. Several knights went to that residence, and they belonged to the royal guard. They should be guarding the king, not showing up there. Ellen didn't understand why the elite knights were sent to that position. It's a bit much, but the king didn't want to take any risk. He only trusts those knights because of everything that happened recently. The great mage said this will have a big impact because the king is giving the prince special treatment that could strain other relationships since the king still hasn't favored any of his children. Remembering a disastrous past knows what can happen. He said his other children will join him the next day. It's time to see how they behave when they're all together. The butler wants to know if the prince is leaving already. Kylan said he still has duties to take care of. The criminals will be sent to the capital. It's a shame one of them isn't alive anymore. That wanderer was declared dead. But in reality, he received the prince's promise and will live a quiet life in the countryside. Very worried, the old man wants to know what will happen to the prince. Knows the old man carries a big share of the blame. The old man knows he's completely guilty, but he was used as a tool. He'll be shown mercy, but he has to swear loyalty to the prince, being promoted to the prince's butler, which is actually a very good outcome. Even so, the old man is still a little uneasy. Kylan can finally return to his main task, finding Sisfanian. He will spend his life in prison. As for the blue-haired girl, she met her and at the guillotine. A type of vegetation is covering the streets that day. A shrub specialized in absorbing moisture. The capital is covered by them, and they kept the white rocks from turning red with the blood of the condemned. Randall is testing the prince now, because of his involvement with that nation interested in the artifact. But to Planche and company, that's the wrong concern. In fact, he hasn't had anything alcoholic since the prince left those land. Planche asked if his brother misses the drunk version of him. Randall said that if he stopped being an alcoholic, he can move on to the next mission, learning to stay quiet. After dropping a fork on the floor, Planche said he's already getting too quiet. Back to the prince, they reached a very dangerous stretch of the route. There was a landslide in their way. To keep going, it'll be better to change course. This trip is taking too long. Kion is so irritated that he decided he'll set up a teleportation portal when he gets back. The elf girl said she could take them to her village to help with that. She said Luca is in that village too, along with the elder. They could stay the night there and continue traveling the next day. News that made the prince really happy. After a short trip, they arrived at the village and were impressed. It's really well built. Kylan never thought he'd end up seeing an elf village. The leader introduced himself, a gray-haired man who wanted to know who the king of the humans was. Kylan said, "There's no one with that title among them," but introduced himself as the representative of the caravan. Zur is the elder of that village, and he has a favor to ask of the humans. The prince wants to hear the details before giving an answer. Not long ago, 3 elves left the village to visit the human, and they still haven't returned. Neither have the scouts sent to find them. He wanted to know if they'd found anyone, because they know very little about human territory. Kion noticed elves tend to ask for a lot. Zur asked because he believed he was speaking to the human king. These people don't seem very bright, and the prince said he's only a prince. To the elder, that doesn't matter. But the prince is already tired of their simplicity, saying there's a big difference in meaning. Zur confirmed he isn't asking for free. He knows the caravan is heading to Siegfried's territory. Traveling on human roads can be slow, but they know the forest well, which could cut travel time by up to 4 times, something that would take 2 months. That was enough to convince the prince to help them. Knowing that, the elder gave a sly smile. Investigating in the forest, they didn't find tracks of interpreter. They found some mercenary, but they don't seem involved in crimes. They could be slave traders, but it doesn't look like it. Kylan decided to investigate nearby town. According to the commander, there seems to be a rivalry between the cities there. A healthy rivalry can be beneficial. Kyander's thinking he might be able to get a new sword out of it. When he reached the first town, he was surprised to find they don't have swords. The prince looked visibly disappointed, but the seller said he looks too young to be a mercenary. Kylan said it's not only mercenaries who need them. The seller said he's wasting his time. The entire weapon stock was already bought by the lord who's hiring mercenary. Kyan said he'll go to the neighboring town to see if he can find what he wants, but the seller said it'll be useless because the same thing is happening over there. Finally, the prince understood what the elf wanted. Those cities are ready to go to war, and the elf village sits right in the middle. The prince wrote a few letters to both lords. He'll buy time so the war doesn't happen, giving the elves time to return home. Now that he's done his part, Kaiwan wants to continue his journey. The elder got worried and asked what he'll do about the war. Kaiwan realized the old man already knew that detail, but chose to hide it anyway. Apparently, the elves who didn't return home decided to work with mercenary. All the signs of war are obvious. They already knew, and they tried to use the prince to prevent it because he's royalty. The old elf was backed into a corner. Upset, Kylan said he doesn't need the forest's secret pass because their deal is cancelled. With no strategic advantage left, the elder asked the prince to wait a little longer. He can't just watch a war happen and do nothing. Kylan said nobody can fight forever. If the village matters to them, they should work to protect it without relying on childish tricks and lies. Now the elder has no option. Kyan said the routes used by merchants were suspended. Only a specific group goes that far, and the prince knows exactly who that is. The cities about to go to war have very poor soil for farming. They depend heavily on merchant. Business was suddenly cut with one of them, causing a major price imbalance and pushing the conflict closer. Kyan understood that trade carries responsibility, but it only hits the common people. It doesn't reach the nobility. Outside, someone started knocking on his door. It was the old elf coming to offer a sincere apology. Luca was the one who dragged the prince into this mess. The elder couldn't tell the truth because he didn't know how the prince would react. To make it worse, Luca is his son. Everyone who disappeared was connected to. If the prince knew the truth, the elder thought he wouldn't help, and he begged the prince for forgiveness. Even if it's an excessive favor, this help could change everyone's lives. With no patience to listen to the whole apology, Kylan told the elder to deliver those letters to the lord. He should also find out whether they need anything besides food because Kylan will meet them after he gets that information. The old elf could barely believe he was still being helped. Kyan said he isn't doing it for him. Still, the elder said elves never forget their promises, and he swore he would never forget their kindness. Later, Kyan started thinking about the queen's brother, who's still a thorn in his side. Using the ring to speak with his master, he said it was time to clean house. News reached the patriarch of that family. The carriage is ready to receive him, but he said he won't be leaving that day. He asked his butler to handle everything with the visitors, but the butler didn't know this was going to happen. There wasn't anything scheduled, and the patriarch is going to miss the council meeting anyway. On top of that, he preferred to receive visitors in the meeting room. Now, the question is who this person is. It's the prince's master. He and the patriarch still hadn't met in person. Evan said he would have prepared better if he'd been warned ahead of time, but the mage assured him it would be quick. He said the man's second son caught the third prince's attention, and that made the noble uneasy. Sipping sun tea, the noble said, Lannan isn't brave enough to do something like that. Ellen realized this man looks down on his own children, so he brought something more reliable than the opinion he was clinging to, a letter. After reading it, he became furious and asked what the mage was trying to say. They both know he tried to get rid of that troublesome. Enraged, the noble said he won't listen to this coming from a deceitful person. In response, Ellen said, it's hard to have a conversation with someone whose throat's been cut. That only made the noble even angrier, because he'd been disrespected on his own territory. Ellen was stunned by that kind of nerve. This man had no idea how dangerous Ellen could be, so Ellen made him feel something primal, the fear of death. Ellen also said he's not like our protagonist, who hesitates when it comes to violence because this mage wouldn't think twice about cutting off a few heads. After being intimidated, the noble essentially backed down. Eventually, he had to calm down. The truth is, Ellen was impressed by that man's endurance. He withstood the pressure of an 8-circle mage. Ellen also said he's sure the noble can take care of his own son, but he's going to suggest a more efficient route. He can be pushed out of his own inner circle. Kyan told his teacher to say the following: they're going to buy the man's business. When the rumor about the prince being poisoned spreads, it'll hit the company's profit. The family is made up of knights. The trade guild was set up for the second son because he has no talent with a sword. At the first sign of losses, they'll dump it. The noble asked why Ellen would cooperate that much. Our boy had already anticipated that question too. Kyan said he won't be the buyer, but they already have the right person in mind. They'll sell the company to the second biggest merchant in the region, Melair. It's on the noble to start the negotiation. The noble's son took a serious hit, because of Hale's arrest. He wants to run before anyone. His luck is so awful, he can't even keep his plants alive. While he was thinking about what to do, he was caught off guard by a mysterious shadow. A man started choking him. He ended up getting arrested and rumors about selling sacred relics started spreading. In prison, he tries to use the weight of his family name, but he stays locked up anyway. Eventually, the novel's reputation was cleared and Malir's management turned out to be exception. In the elf village, the old pointy-eared guy said, "The mother tree prepared the path for our boy. Luca is going to guide them through that path." Kion thanked him for all of it, but said he'd rather have CS help the girl they met in the forest since she seems to know the place really well. They're ready to move on. That's when our protagonist noticed the child started speaking normally. It felt really weird, and on top of that, the kid was holding something kind of mysterious. Obviously, our protagonist got very interested in that strange little stone and asked if it was the divine artifact they stole. Luca started getting anxious and said he doesn't remember. Arson seemed to recognize something about that stone. It might be an artifact too, which immediately caught our protagonist's attention. The Knight's commander said, "The energy coming off that object is dangerous." And yeah, they can feel a sinister aura leaking out of that tiny stone. It's possible the previous owner died in a brutal, violent way, and that needs to be investigated. Kyle allowed the girl to keep using the stone to make communication between them easier, and the artifact that once belonged to Luca now belongs to our protagonist. The girl was really happy about that, and said she'll give it back when they reach their destination. The one still worried is the commander. He is concerned because she seems to know the questions before they're even asked. That's something our protagonist already noticed. That Kit can sense what's going to happen, and that stone seems to block it from happening. Maybe it's connected to the axis of time. Our protagonist's blonde brother, he's getting some information. He's still thinking a lot about what our boy said, that the roses would bloom. Lennon was the enemy who fell this. The blonde boy started using an artifact hidden in his hand. Through it, he made the withered flowers come back to life. Back in the forest, our protagonist seems to be meditating a lot, building up his inner energy. Ellen said that instead of increasing his magic, the boy strengthened the aura he has, which wasn't what Ellen wanted, and it's a habit from his past life since he used to use a sword. The problem is that even when he tries to increase his magic, he ends up doing the opposite. Knowing that, his master said he can help him with it. Our boy needs to keep walking his own path. Continuing the journey, they reached the end of the forest. Kylan saw a huge city. It's the home of his butler's family. The elf boy remembered that now they have to say goodbye, and he's ready to return the artifact to our protagonist. But Kylan has something to ask the kid. Does he really need to go back to the village right now? It doesn't seem like they want him there that much. If the boy's condition was a problem, our protagonist is willing to help. Before accepting the offer, the boy admitted that sometimes he feels uncomfortable in his village, but he learned from his mother that this is who he is in his purest, simplest form. Unlike the others, he doesn't need to be fixed. Even if he speaks differently, that doesn't change the fact that he's an elf. Those words impressed our protagonist, and he realized he still has a lot of growing up to do. The two say goodbye. Kion genuinely wants to meet that little friend again. Arson, who used to be bothered by the kid, looks like he's going to miss him a lot. That city looks like a massive portrait. It's a relief to know the family never wanted to take the Empire's throne. Before entering the city, Kylan told his butler he can act more at ease. He doesn't want to irritate more knives there, and he asked his butler not to act so much like a servant. But the butler was offended and said he can handle the situation. Soyen still has a strong sense of duty toward our boy, the one who held a blade in midair to save him. After they were given rooms, our boy took a nice bath. He thought he'd already reached the main territory. He did, but they're still at the outermost gate. They still have 2 days of travel ahead. Kion looked at that mysterious stone again. He realized that even though he changed because of this second life, his mana is still the same. So, he had the bright idea to use his aura to feed the mana he needed. Arson saw the intense glow of that energy and was amazed. Our boy just found a huge source of magic, reaching the 4 circle easily. They're finally getting close to the main castle, but that brings up another problem. Besides him, there are 6 other sword masters on the continent. Those with powerful auras can recognize who the weaker ones are. Duke Siegfried is the second most powerful man on the continent, far beyond our boy. All he needs is one brief look. He was shocked to realize he's standing in front of another sword master. Siegfried had a lot of questions, wanting to know how that happened. He said, "Our protagonist has grown a lot and become a man." He almost didn't recognize him clearly. He must have gone through a lot of changes. Klyan said it wasn't anything that noticeable, but Siegfried disagreed, saying, "Our boy truly changed. Now he's going to take the young man inside." Watching all this, the butler is really happy. Siegfried said that Great Mage picked an excellent apprentice, someone who's not only a mage but also one of the 6 great sword masters of the continent. Of course, Siegfried would notice. He didn't train all those years for nothing. He admitted our boy still can't see Siegfried's aura, but Siegfried can see our protagonist's aura without any difficulty. He said again that this is great progress, and his master must be very pleased. Since it's already late, Siegfried can't stay to talk and had to say goodbye. But it's fine. Kylan realized he arrived earlier than expected. His host knows he'll keep traveling and wish them safety. Our boy's master drinks a bit of wine, saying his disciple reached the land of the elephants safely. With him is the king, who looks very worried because future issues make him nervous. The great mage quickly realizes he's thinking about succession. Kion is the last of his sons, who still has to do this rite of passage. Soon they'll all be eligible to take the throne. Randall is too mysterious. Planche is very strong but also stubborn, and our boy still needs to show what he can do. Ellen said the king should name the least favorite son as heir. Then the brothers would plot against, and the problem would solve itself. One thing this mage is sure about: our protagonist is still in the race. One day the king will see what this boy is hiding. But until then, he shouldn't worry about future abstract things. Everything will happen the way it's supposed to. Kyon, he's about to enter that mysterious cave. After walking for a few minutes, he felt completely lost. He doesn't even know how deep it is anymore. Then his face was lit up by an intense glow. Kyon seemed to be taken somewhere else, a prairie full of flower. He can't tell where he is until his eyes catch something terrifying, like its magical force can't even be measured, a presence that makes anyone afraid. Kion bowed before it, because he's sure it isn't just a single will. That is the great Sisphanian, the entity he came to meet. Villagers working nearby were shocked. A huge mysterious flash appeared in the middle of the mountain. It's our boy presenting himself to that entity. He was only supposed to meet the goddess's will, but she decided to appear in her original form. Overwhelming, suffocating. The goddess quickly realized this child carries memories from another reality. He turned her blessing into a weapon, and now she's wondering what drives him. Moving closer, she said he was summoned to that place back in the city. The young prince's rite of passage. The butler is worried too, because something like this has never happened before. Siegfried went up to his son and asked if he really cares that much about our protagonist. The boy asked if his father shouldn't be inspecting those land. He did, but he finished quickly, and the surprises of the day weren't over. A little girl with very unusual hair introduced herself. Her name is Veronica, and she's the granddaughter of our boy's master. She came with her mother, Rachel. Our boy is still being examined by the goddess. With a simple touch, she accessed all his memories, including the axis of time. Now she understands what's going on. But when she tried to tell him certain things, her voice couldn't be heard. Sisphanian realized what's happening, and said, "That woman doesn't want this to happen." They're talking about Sereni, the queen of the gods. She fought the void during the Great War alongside the 8 great heroes. After the battle, she fell into a deep sleep, but she is still alive, Sisphanian said. Our boy needs to ask the right question. So he brought up the axis of time, and said he wants to understand why in his past life they wanted that object, but once again, he couldn't hear the goddess's words. Sisphanian said, "Our boy's impatience doesn't line up with Serendi's will. He wants to know about things that happened after his first death, and learning that too early would change the course of everything." Our boy realized that his Serendi is interfering. It's because it's necessary. A sign this is bigger than him, so he asked one last question. He wants to know if it was his brother who used the artifact to bring him back to life. Sisphanian said, "That man is a king before he's a brother, and he shouldn't be seen as a fool. Nobody would change the natural order of things just for the protagonist's life." Kion understood it wasn't Chase who manipulated time, and his heart filled with doubt. The goddess asked our boy to show what he has. Kion got confused because he thinks he has nothing. Then he remembered that small artifact. The goddess examined it, and once again, her words couldn't be heard. After examining our protagonist, she recommended he keep that artifact, promising he'll find out everything when the right time comes. He shouldn't be disappointed just because he didn't hear what he wanted in that meeting. He should return when he truly believes the time is right. A bunch of carrier pigeons flew through the city to spread the news about the great light that appeared during our protagonist's ceremony. Siegfried had never seen so many pigeons in his territory. He ended up getting scolded by his own daughter, saying he shouldn't be idle right now. Her name is Diria, and she's already an influential leader. Siegfried said it's fine even if he does nothing. His daughter said people want the power they have, and they need to be very careful about who's in their territory. Her concern made Siegfried happy because she's very smart. She got that from her mother, thank God. Still, they're a family of protectors, not rulers. Even if she agrees, she feels different times are coming. The two of them watch our protagonist's silhouette through the window. Siegfried promised he'll find out which families are in the region, so his daughter won't worry even more. The butler was happy to see all those pigeons. He made a point of mentioning it to his father, saying he even saw a hawk. The goddess's message, telling our boy to come back when he's ready, still won't leave his mind. His thoughts were interrupted by the butler, who brought some tea and said, "Our boy hasn't moved away from the window this whole time." He asked if Kylan found anything interesting in that territory. Kylan said, "What's interesting can't be seen from there." The butler went to the window and saw Hina and her brother. They're playing with the Siegfried family dog whose name is Hien. Since that's the same name as the butler, he got furious because his father had that brilliant idea. But they quickly realized Hina really loves animal. Maybe they can adopt a dog at the palace. They'll need to teach sign language so Hina can communicate with it. The butler is fluent in that way of communicating because of his sickly brother. Kion apologized for bringing up something so sensitive, but the butler said it's been a long time. And besides, now he has our boy. Still, if the protagonist decides to adopt a dog, it'll cause problems with his brothers. Kion is ready to go to the main city, and he knows that's the crown prince's city. It almost sounds like he wants to become the successor just to have a dog. That's when our boy said he's also the only heir who saw the goddess in her true form. In a room somewhere else, a woman is having her hair brushed. The letters that were sent have already reached their destination, which gets this woman really excited. Our boy had a bit of trouble talking to his master. He needed to find a place that wasn't under the goddess's power, but he did find one. The family cemetery, discovered by the butler himself, which let the communication happen without any issue. Ellen wants to know how the ceremony went for our boy, and she quickly finds out it all worked out, but she still wants the details. She's shocked to hear that Kylan saw the goddess in her original form. He was supposed to be there for that moment. Truth is, our protagonist was blown away, too. He was told to come back when he's ready. Now that the queen's brother has disappeared, they need to keep an eye on the queen, who got a visit from a noble that same morning. But that noble definitely isn't going to say anything about what happened since the negotiation between him and the mage is protected by a pact. It's a little risk, but Ellen is good at this kind of thing. And her apprentice is bold too, and he's already done it. That noble is a problem from the past now, so Kion doesn't need to worry about anything else. He was one of the queen's agents doing the dirty work for her. The mage found a letter that might interest our boy. Sis tried to contact her family. She's desperate to reach her allies. The problem is her eldest nephew, who's also one of the 6 great sword masters on the continent. While defending the borders, he got injured and he plans to recover in the capital. A pretty obvious excuse because he's clearly coming to negotiate. Our boy is interested in meeting him. Later, Siegfried invited our boy to sit on a log and rest for a bit. They used the time to talk about the ceremony. Our boy didn't just hear the goddess's will. Siegfried is impressed that he saw her in person, and he's happy about it, knowing she's still alive. His family has protected the cave for 500 years. A dragon's nest that a lot of people claimed wasn't even real. Turns out they were wrong. Their determination to protect that place really paid off. Kion says he'll be back to speak with her again very soon, and having a teleportation portal there would be incredibly useful. Siegfried asks whether the king would approve something like that since it could leave the capital wide open. Kion assures him access will be restricted, and if it ever becomes a danger, it can be destroyed. As long as the king approves, Siegfried has no objection. Our boy has one more favor to ask. Siegfried assumes it's about sparring, but that's not what he means. Using his aura, Kylan creates a kind of crystal in one hand. Siegfried realizes it's a magic core made purely out of aura. Kylan reshapes it into a sword. He definitely wants to test how strong the weapon is in real combat. Siegfried is ready to help with the test. It doesn't look like it, but the old man is the 2nd strongest sword master on the continent, and also the 2nd most experienced on the path of the sword. A terrifying opponent. His blade is heavy and it's fast too. Kylan gets pushed hard by his attacks. Even so, Siegfried is impressed by the young man's skill. Even if he isn't powerful, his agility is incredible, manifesting that sword has to be burning through his mana. And Siegfried isn't holding back in this practice. Our protagonist's talent gets Siegfried even more fired up. He doesn't look like that weak kid from before at all, but they've just found the limit. Siegfried knows the kid isn't a real challenge yet. It's time to settle that training properly. The old man throws a powerful strike, and our protagonist repels it, finding an opening for a clean counterattack. The blade passes dangerously close to the old man's neck.
Kion realizes he's done something really stupid. Siegfried is now giving off a huge amount of power, ready to show the kid where he stands in the world. In the end, the aura sword gets destroyed. But what surprises Siegfried is that he actually hurt our boy a little. They don't even have time to talk about it. There are a bunch of people watching, really curious. On top of that, the old man's sword is cracked and there's a wound on his neck. The commander and Siegfried's knights weren't expecting anything like this. Later that same day, they hold a banquet. The old man shows he can play the violin really well, which leaves our protagonist impressed. Kion is still uncomfortable about the wound he caused. The old man's only worry is how much he scared his son, who's even more worried about our protagonist's condition. Kion thanks him for the training session, confirming it was an excellent opportunity, because now he knows how much durability his energy sword has. After seeing Siegfried's power, he understands he still has a long road ahead. The old man listens closely, then jokes and asks how that cut on the kid's face is doing. He says he overdid it a bit, but he had to react to our protagonist's speed. The two of them keep trading compliments. Siegfried says those techniques are pretty common in Siegfried night fencing. That comment seriously freaks our protagonist out. Siegfried says it would be hard to pick up that kind of habit training in this region. The Empire's technique relies heavily on footwork, but watching the protagonist move, he notices he rotates his shoulder blades a lot. Siegfried tells him to be more careful because people like his rivals would spot the difference easily. Our boy asks if Siegfried doesn't want to know who he really is. The old man says he's on his own land. He has no interest in knowing who's wearing Kion's skin. He only wants them to train again. Our boy thanks him for that. He asks whether Gray will be able to sense the aura he is now. The rumors say that Guy's father wasn't happy with his ability, but even so, he should still be able to see the protagonist's power. So, the kid needs to prepare for every possibility. Kion understands he can't just sit still. After 10 days on that land, Ellen asks if our boy isn't interested in going back. Truth is, the protagonist wants to stay a little longer, and he asks whether Gray has already traveled to the capital. There's still no news, but our boy decides to wait. Kion is a mage who's also a sword master, something the world doesn't know. If Gray manages to sense his aura, it'll bring a lot of unwanted attention. According to Arson, there are ways to hide mana using spells, and he's ready to help our boy with that. They also start researching the teleportation circle with Veronica and Rachel. The great mage's daughter-in-law is very talented. She dedicates herself entirely